Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm with Adam Ghanoum. He's our upcoming president of the Youth Council as of 2020. And today we're going to be talking about hosting successful meetings. Right? This is something. It's an essential skill for leading a team. When your team meets, that's when your team reconnects, realigns, and moves forward together. If your team never meets, of course, there's no point in really having a team. But at the same time, if your team meets and it's ineffective, it can actually be even detrimental, worse than not meeting at all. So today we're going to talk a little bit about hosting effective meetings in general, and we're going to have some general guidelines that you should follow. So let's look here at this deck we have. So Adam's about to have his first youth council meeting with his new team, right? And going into this meeting, what do you think is kind of your key objectives, Adam?
I think my key objective is to excite the members of the meeting and, try to get them on the same boat in terms of, why we're here and what we're doing in this meeting, what the goal is and what ideas we have and stuff like that.
Perfect. So you actually touched on something really important here. So Adam just touched on something very important here, which is exciting his team. Me personally, when I first started kind of leading a team, I just kind of, I guess, naively assumed that because they're on my team, they're just going to do their work, which is false. No matter what, every human needs to be convinced of what they're doing. Especially if you're trying to lead a team, they do have to be bought into what they're doing. So for effective meetings and leading teams in general, get the team's buy-in. And I'm talking on every scale. Why are you on this team is a huge one. That's really important. But then after that, why are you even at this meeting right now? If somebody walks into the meeting, he's like, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't think it's important. That meeting is going to be very slow and not exciting, right? So that's one really important thing. Get the team's buy-in. There's a lot of ways you can do this. First, one way is to show credibility and care. Come to the meeting with slides, with handouts. Be ready and show that you put in work already and this is important to you. That's one really important piece. And another one is to explain the vision. People don't just sit in cars, right? People only sit in cars if they're going somewhere. Otherwise, nobody wants to sit in the car. It's the same idea. You need to explain to them that together you're going somewhere exciting. You need to excite them for that. If they're excited for it, if you're going somewhere exciting enough, you'll sit in a car for 8 hours, 12 hours. It's the same idea here. If you excite them enough, they'll stick right by you for a very long time and work with you. So that's one objective, Adam. Get the team's buy-in. That's really important. And this is the first meeting for the youth council. So what are some other things you want to do?
Just get their thoughts on what could be improved at Ilya, or what ideas they have that they want to add to the organization as a whole through this position on the youth council. Other ideas, what steps they could take that night that we could all take that would, have an impact. We could see the impact and we would, get moving. I think that as a first meeting, just establishing the purpose of it and also, what immediate and future plans you have.
So that's kind of the meat of the meeting, right? This type of meeting is a brainstorming meeting. There's other types of meetings. There's stand-up meetings and, working meetings. But this one is kind of brainstorm, vision, and plan, seeing where you're going, kind of a planning meeting. And so generally for meetings, this isn't about one meeting type, but generally for meetings, you're going to have kind of that the meat of the meeting. And in this case, it is kind of discussing ideas and, what you're going to do. And one really important thing is discussing next steps. Does anything stand out to you about next steps, or do you have anything to say about that piece?
Do you mean next steps as in what actual next steps you want to take or next step after the meeting? I guess next steps after the meeting would be to, of course, make it on a weekly or monthly basis or talk with them about what time works best. and then also put together just notes and the thoughts that come out as a result of the meeting, write them down, work on them, and try to pull them together and come up with a conclusion.
Yeah. So this next steps idea is really important. Sometimes you might go into a meeting and have ideas and come out with good ideas. But if you leave the meeting without clear next steps, nobody really knows what they're going to do that night, the next day, and the day after that, that meeting is essentially wasted because the point of the meeting is to realign so you can work better. And if you leave the meeting without knowing what work needs to be done, I mean, of course, there is really not much reason to have the meeting in the first place. So this is very important. Never leave a meeting without next steps. Uh, you can have brainstorming meetings and things like that, but there has to be next steps. And you said another really important thing, notes. Write down what was discussed and next steps. You have to take comprehensive notes for meetings. Humans forget like 90% of everything. Like I don't remember what I ate for breakfast 3 days ago. It would take me a while to remember that. So you can imagine like a meeting where it's so much information, you need to capture it, and capturing it in your mind just isn't enough. So that's really important. Taking notes, having the next steps in the notes with clear due dates, and then sending them out to the team. This is kind of what I see as the general flow of the meeting. Get the team's buy-in. You kind of start the meeting at a big picture. Why are we here today? Why are we doing this at all? Are we excited? Things like that. Next is discuss ideas. You go into the meeting, then it's next steps like, okay, we kind of got this decision made. We have these ideas. What do we do now? And notes. This happens throughout, but at the end, you kind of send them. You follow up with the team and you say, all right, this is what was discussed. Like, great, we have these action items. They're due, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever it is. And these people are responsible. Maybe the last thing I want to talk about is now kind of details of when you're actually in the meeting, in the zone, whatever it is, and actually going through the meeting. Some advice I have, if you really want to have a really effective meeting, is keep it short. If you've been in like a lecture for 2 hours, you have a 2 hour lecture, we all know that like by an hour and 30 in, it's like hard to even like take in any more information. For a meeting where like you're actively participating, you know, the longer you're in it, the harder it is to just maintain that really sharp focus. So, you want to make use of the time as best as you can. Um, because as time goes on, the effectiveness of the time spent diminishes. So with that, keep track of time, and one way to do that, very important also, is come with an agenda. So I'm going to write down its own bullet. Agenda. You need to have an idea of what you're talking about. As Adam said, I asked him about the next steps, and he already kind of had an idea of where he wanted to take the next steps. He's coming into the meeting with an idea of, by the end of the meeting, I want to know when we're going to do these things. It's the same idea. You need an agenda with times on what you're going to discuss, and you need to try to follow it as close as you can. Send it out to the team ahead of time so they know what to expect. This way, of course, the meeting is more effective. And also, while you're discussing ideas and everything, very important point, be respectful and listen to every member. We talked a lot about like you go into the meeting with your ideas, but if your ideas were the whole point, then you wouldn't have the meeting. You have your ideas. That's really important. If you go in clueless, that's a bad thing. But if you go in arrogant, that's almost equally as bad, because you're just disregarding them, making them feel unimportant, and that actually ties into the team's buy-in. If they feel like they're not even contributing anything, then why are they even working with you? So this is a really important point. Make sure you are really open-minded, you listen to your team, and don't hesitate to, you could come in with like a 5-page report on like, this is what I think we should do. And one guy says like one idea that kind of contradicts it and like maybe pokes holes in it. You should immediately be like, yeah, maybe this isn't the right way, and like pivot, use what you did, but pivot. So I think that's generally really important points, good general guidelines for hosting meetings. And now we're going to look briefly at Adam's deck, and I'll talk a little bit about what I like and what maybe could use some work. So vision slide is empty. And I think the idea here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, is that you guys will come up with the vision together, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So, you know, you want to make sure the formatting is nice and whatnot. But that is a really good way to do this. If you come in with just a vision written down, it's set in stone, uh, it's not nearly as effective as if you come in and you have your ideas for the vision, but you come in and discuss it with your team because they're the ones that are going to go there with you. It's like if you're planning a vacation, it's that analogy of saying the car again. If you say, we're going to this city and doing these 5 things, you'll get less people than if you say, I'm trying to go in the city. What do you guys want to do there? Right. So working with the team, that ties into listening to their ideas. Very good thing to kind of come up with these big decisions together and do some work ahead of time on your own. Next is, why do you guys think you are here? Do you see the value of being here? So this even is a little bit like interesting word choice. I'd say, do you see the value in being here? Or be as like kind as possible, things like that. Why do you guys think you're here? So this is a good one. I think it's good to challenge the people in your meeting. Like, why are you here? You know, some people, you know, I think everybody might remember some point of their lives where they're asked by a teacher for the first time in school, why are you here? And you think for the first time, like, maybe I'm here not just because my mom put me on the bus, you know what I mean? So very good to challenge your team and really ask these big picture questions. What do you want to do? I would come into this with more specificity. Maybe can you elaborate on this slide?
Yeah, like what do you want? I should have said, what do you want to do in or uh, let's say for example in this context, what do you want to do on the youth council? What do you want to do with this role?
So I think coming up with things together is really good, as I just said, but also you have to have some guidelines, you know. So I would, before this, I would say, what does the youth council do? You know, what are our responsibilities? For example, like there's the responsibility of handling youth grievances or defining youth programs. In the case of the youth council, is something that isn't really going to change. You guys are discussing how you accomplish this. So if you come in saying we have these responsibilities, that's a nice guideline to kind of frame the conversation and help it move forward. So that would be my recommendation here. Maybe add some table or something from the materials we have. And what ideas do you have? Do you want to elaborate on this side?
So, what ideas do you have for the youth council? What do you want to do this with this role? I guess. What ideas do you have? New ideas in terms of innovation and improving the organization as a whole, stuff like that. I think that's kind of repetitive with
Mm-hmm.
before, but
Yeah, I think you could work this into the other slides. Like you could steer the conversation to include some of these ideas, just so you make the best use of time and everything. But yeah, I think I really like how there's a large emphasis on working together to come up with these ideas. Some things I could see going wrong is because it's so open-ended, it could take too long, and also because it's so open-ended, it could kind of go off track unless you put some guidelines. So if you put some guidelines, that could fix it. And what's another thing that you see missing from this deck?
an agenda.
Yeah, exactly. Second slide, agenda, you know, just so they know what they're getting into. Any questions or any thoughts you want to share?
No, not really.
Okay, that's great. So I think this is really good high level overview of how to host an effective meeting. Again, there are more specific types of meetings, stand up meetings, they're like 15 minutes and you kind of do it completely differently um, in terms of like the details. But when it comes to the general idea, starting big picture, making use of time while you're discussing, and leaving with notes and next steps, every meeting, be sure to do that, inshallah. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and inshallah, I pray that you all, you know, find the best of success in all your meetings. Assalamu alaikum.